So, following the kind of arc of the Satanism thing, and then going from that to working in the church, and I'd mentioned the thing about, becoming a pariah there, and how much that hurt. Well, then I ended up joining the army. See, the truth of the matter is that at the end of all of it, my job had not panned out. My attempts to go to school had not panned out. Like I said, I'd wanted to be a scientist since I was a little kid. So I hopped on the zoology program over at Mount Hood Community College for a transfer to OSU. That was the plan. But in order to go to college, I needed money, financial aid. I ended up screwing myself out of that on accident because my first term I floundered. Anyway, and then the thing that ended up happening from there was that, I had to get a job, and I started working at Winco. If you can avoid it, do. Anyways, unfortunately at Winco, I was able to make enough to cover college, unfortunately. They were not it was not conducive to a college schedule. I was doing heavy labor-intensive classes. And I also ended up in a very labor-intensive schedule at Winco. I would work anywhere from 6 to 9 day stretches. Like, basically the way it would get set up is that, I'd work for 6 days, and then I'd get a day off. I'd work for another 2 days, then I'd get another day off. Then I'd work for 7 days straight, and then I'd get a day off, and then I'd work for 8 days straight, and I'd get 2 days off in a row, and then I'd work 6 days straight again, and it just went on and on and on like that. Not conducive to a college schedule, especially with a heavy workload. So naturally something had to give, and it was my dreams. So there was that, coupled with the church thing, where, my family had turned on me. Nothing was working. So I joined the army. And I had a very distinct purpose in that, I lied to a lot of people. I told them that I was joining for college. The truth is that I would join the army to die. That was what I wanted to do. Now I left it open for the possibility that I could succeed there. I chose to be a 19 kilo. On the ASVAB I got like a 95 out of 99. They wanted me to do everything amazing, but I was hell-bent on being a tank crewman. And they accepted it after, trying to fight with me a little bit. So yeah, I was to be trained in that, but, with the Iraq War and Afghanistan War raging at that exact time, I wanted to go straight into battle. And the truth is, if I didn't succeed, I wanted to die. And that was it. And I failed at that. I got kicked out of the army. Took about 3 months. So what would have been basic training. 19 kilos at that point in time, at least, along with 18 deltas. We had OSET, so it didn't quite work the same. It wasn't 3 months of basic, 3 months of AIT. It was all of it rolled into one continuous thing. Or sorry, not 3 months of AIT. AIT was longer because it all factored up to be about 9 months. 9 months of basic training. That was what we were set for. Anyway, but long story short, I ended up joining, and before I say anything about afterwards, I had enough of a relationship with God at that point in time, working with the church and so on, that I could pray and see things happen. And it was funny to me because I had prayed about joining the army, and I asked God to make it clear whether He wanted me to or not. And He made it very clear that He didn't want me to. I had to take a small PT test in order to come in with rank, and I failed it. And that was the thing, was that I prayed about it and asked God. I was like, hey, if you want me to go, let me do okay. Because physically I was very fit. I could run, I could do push-ups, I could do crunches. It was easy. 40 push-ups was cake. I haven't worked out in a year and it's still cake. Point is that I had asked about that. It was like there was no logical reason why I couldn't do this. So I asked God, if you don't want me to go, then don't let me do well. Let me fail the PT test. I failed the PT test. I couldn't do the mile jog, which was weird, because running was easy. Anyway, I got, the recruiter did what recruiters do, and he lied on the paperwork and pushed me through. So I went into basic training, went into the army, and it was very, very dark. I have never seen that many grown men break down. I watched men literally go insane in basic training. A lot of guys were lied to. A lot of guys had a lot of misconceptions about what the army was going to be like. A lot of people just didn't handle the isolation well. Suddenly you're stuck somewhere at some random location in the world, and you're away from your friends, your family, and everything that you know and love, and your identity is stripped away from you, and they cut off everything that makes you you, your hair, your clothing, all those little things that you hold to are gone. Some people couldn't handle that, because a lot of who they were was wrapped up in the material. Some people just couldn't handle being alone from their families, away from their loved ones. Whatever the case, it was a very, very hard time, and I tried to be the best that I could in that. Even though I joined specifically for the purpose of dying. I wanted to go out to war. I wanted to die there. Because I was done. I had failed at everything I had set out to achieve. This was my last-ditch effort, and if I didn't die, then I would have, a means to pay for college without working at freaking Winco. So, I tried to be the best light that I could be to the people around me. I tried to help lead as many to God as I could while I was at basic, which had the results you'd expect. It was mixed, and what was more jarring was seeing how, when I got kicked out, that was really upsetting, because I got kicked out for having asthma. Well, when I was a little kid, I had asthma. When I was about 12, I was prayed for and healed of my asthma. I could run like crazy. And lo and behold, they're telling me I have asthma. Well, I had asthma before, so I knew this wasn't, the symptoms were different. There was less wheezing and more having my throat close up on me and wanting to choke. So I kept telling them it wasn't right. Years later, I found out it was viral bronchitis. Had they given me antibiotics, I would have been fine. Took antibiotics. I'm fine now. I can run like crazy. Ultimate Frisbee. It's so much easier without bronchitis. Anyway. Point is that, I got kicked out, and I was very angry with God after that. I felt like I'd been robbed of a great opportunity. And it was my last straw, my last effort. It was all I had left. It was my last plan to try to take control of my fate in life and try to do something aside from floundering. And it was gone. I was kicked out, sent home right before Christmas. I guess, thankfully, thanks to the Bush administration, weirdly, I was guaranteed my job back per the Patriot Act. So I went back to Winco. They couldn't say no because it was illegal. They wanted to. They made sure I knew about that. So I came back from that jarring defeat only to be back where I was. Same church. Same everything. Same job. Except this time I wasn't really allowed to go back to college because I owed them money and they wouldn't let me come back. So, I was stuck. And I became very, very depressed. Couldn't sleep anymore. And on top of that, being served saltpeter during basic training entailed, let's just say about a week and a half to 2 weeks after coming home from basic, it was almost like going through puberty again. As the saltpeter kind of went through my body and I was back to normal. Sex drive was through the roof. I mean, it was ridiculous. It was utterly and completely ridiculous. So, got a new phone, had internet, pornography. I became addicted to that. Which lasted for about 2 years, maybe 3. 2 years. After basic. After coming home from the army. And that was really frustrating. In all my life, I'd never been an addictive person. I'd never been addicted to anything. I've always maintained a great degree of self-control. And, there's never been an issue there. I had stopped masturbating and stopped looking at porn when I was a teenager. At about, I was 17, I think. 16. 16 is when I stopped. And by sheer force of will, I just didn't. Refused. And, I maintained that for several years, and then suddenly, I come home from the army and I can't stop myself. And then it got worse, because suddenly I was addicted to it. I couldn't sleep without doing it. I would just lay up and fight and kick and scream, and, I'd been in church, and I viewed this as a sin, because it is a sin. But I just fought with it.